This is going to be crowded, I think. It's
Yeah.
a great place to do this. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Did I just...
We're not muted at the present moment.
This man is, he's in control of our mics, this man.
There we go.
And my mic is on. I don't
it's
really
all of
want it
us.
on.
He doesn't want us to turn them off.
We just have to use sign language.
Where's this man with this magic man with
Yeah.
the tablet?
I guess I can't make any sneaky remarks.
Thank you for reminding me.
I didn't realize it was It's funny. All right. Don't tell any secrets right now.
I'm going to take, oh, that's mic runner. I'm going to go behind one.
Okay. I'm going to walk around.
Oh, where's our speaker? Oh, we can walk up together. We can walk up together then.
I'm still just wandering.
Don't panic. We're right here.
You got me back, right? All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's good.
That'd be good. I could use that. Hey! Oh my God. How you been? Yeah? Yeah, still part-time, which is great.
Yeah.
And I'm mic'd right now, so
I'm
okay.
you know, EAG.
lunch? Are all your people here? Okay. that work? Okay, that's a little closer. I never said it. They still float. No, this is great. Is this okay that these seats are in this close? I don't think they're going anywhere now, though.
Oh, no, that's fine. Long as we have room for the speakers to come up and speak, and it's like a wave, then they're gonna make a fork, that's fine. That is perfect. Thank you so
No
much.
problem. I mean, there's a lot of available. They just can't see the speaker. Okay, that's good. Very nice. The lights are dimming. We're beginning. Good evening and welcome. My name is B.J. Owens. I am the Dean of Trinity Cathedral, and I cannot tell you what a pleasure and a joy it is to look out and see you all gathered here today. We welcome you. We are so honored to be here to co-host, to open the door to the state of the LGBTQ plus community event. And we do not take it for granted. We realize that a church is not necessarily the easiest place to be right now. And so we take it as a great honor, and I would even say a blessing, that you all are here. It is so important to us at Trinity Cathedral to tell a story of a God who is infinitely creative, radically inclusive, and above all, the embodiment of love. And there is no better way to preach that word. There is no better way to give that sermon than by you all gathering here today. We welcome you, and we're so glad you're here. Thank you.
In which we live, and even the state context in which we live. And I think it's really, really important that we begin to gather more like this to really talk and really strategize a plan for action. What role do you want to play, right? In what is happening right now, right? We often think about our histories and think, well, if I was in, whatever situation, I would do X, Y, Z. Well, you're in that situation now, as we all are. And so I think it's really important to think about, what is the work that we want to do in order to, protect our lives, in order to, build community with one another, and make sure that Cleveland and the county and the state, and of course, our nation is not only a place that is safe for queer and trans lives, but a place where we can also live and thrive and love on one another as well. And so with that, I just want to say thank you. And I hope the conversation is great, and I will see you all when I'm back in the US in early March. Thank you.
Good evening. Let me just say, wow, what an incredible, incredible turnout here. I want to recognize one more time. Well, who am I? I'm sorry. Good evening. My name is Carrie McCormick, and I'm one of the two proud, out, and open LGBTQ plus members of Cleveland City Council. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to, one more time, thank Trinity for always opening their doors to everyone here in this community. Can we give one more shout out to Trinity? It is truly incredible to see everyone here, advocates, allies, members of our community. There is no doubt that we are in a really, really tough time. And one of my roles tonight is to acknowledge some of the elected officials here tonight. But before I do that, I just want to say this. It is clear that there are people in leadership and power in this country and state that are actively attacking and harming our community. But what I will tell you, the body that I am proud to serve on continues to stand with the LGBTQ plus community, and we will continue to do that. The city of Cleveland has this community's back. We are not intimidated, we are not afraid, and we will continue to proudly stand with our community. With that said, and I will be brief, I just have a couple people to introduce. First and foremost, I want to introduce an incredible colleague on Cleveland City Council, the other half of the LGBTQ plus elected, Councilwoman Rebecca Moore. Will you please stand up? Councilwoman Moore is doing incredible work, but one of the things I want to highlight, because of her leadership, we are advancing Cleveland's first full-time paid LGBT liaison in the city of Cleveland. Robert Schlepper, where's he at? Where's that? I saw him walk in somewhere. There he is. So, Robert, and I think I got my facts here right, Robert was just elected to Cuyahoga County Council as the first out LGBTQ plus community member and unseated a member who voted against the county's Equality Act. Congratulations. And you always got to, and if there are other elected officials in the room, if you could wave, I'm sorry if I missed you, I'm so sorry. Oh, listen, I got her saved for best for last. Yeah. Trust me. Okay, with that said, I want to introduce, or not introduce, but acknowledge, she's going to speak in a couple minutes, one of my true mentors, a hero in this community, Ohio Senator Nikki Antonio. You. Nikki does the work, fights the fight, not only puts forth great legislation, but the amount of nasty, hateful legislation that she has killed over the years is truly incredible. Thank you, Nikki. So with that said, I want to introduce Mayor Bibb in the City of Cleveland's LGBTQ plus liaison, Kevin Schmatzer.
Thank you. It is always hard to follow somebody who is such a big, huge motivational speaker like that. Oh, but thank you, Carrie. Carrie and I have worked together on a lot. My name is Kevin Schmatzer. I'm on the administrative side there. I work in the Department of Economic Development, but I also carry a part-time role as the current LGBT liaison, and hopefully somebody will take the reins someday on that and being our first full-time LGBT liaison like Carrie had mentioned. Over the years, there's been a lot of work that we have done at City Hall. I will tell you, when I was a young guy out of graduate school and I first started there, I eventually figured out who were our LGBT colleagues in the building, but it was the photo in the desk drawer theory. That's what it was. It was the photo in the desk drawer where people, oh, this is my partner, the drawer would open, you know, the photo would go out, they would show it, and it would go back in. But you know, since those days, there has been a lot of work. And Carrie and I are going to talk about some of those successes too a little bit, what we have done and worked on. But the work cannot be done without our LGBTQ plus community partners. So please stand up and see who is here out of our partners, and let's give them a loud round of applause. Who is here? Everybody. All right. Time if I had to read the list. But with that, it is partnerships and work to make a difference. And a lot of the work started in 2007 and 8. And some of you may know this, and I'm going to have my colleague, Carrie McCormick, come up here. But I want to share with you the work that our partners in the City of Cleveland has done. And we're going to share some of these success stories. And hopefully, some of this effort that we do will go into the state and the federal government. That's a different story that we're going to probably talk about later on tonight. But we do want to share some of these success stories. You ready, Carrie?
I'm ready.
All right. You go first.
Okay. Ordinance 74508, the Domestic Partner Registry, passed in 2008, as well as in 2009, 120 unmarried couples on the city's Domestic Partner Registry qualifying for full benefits.
Then in July 2011, and I was there for that, Cleveland passes the domestic partner benefits to the partners of the City Hall workers. So we got benefits there, which was great. That happened in 2011.
2009, City of Cleveland approves a $700,000 grant as a part of competing with the finalists Washington, D.C. and Boston, which we successfully then hosted the 2014 International Gay Games.
This was a big one. Ordinance 1446-13. It passed in 2016. It got done. Took 3 years, but it got done. Also known as the bathroom bill, that strengthened the unlawful discriminatory public accommodations practices and unlawful employment practices based on gender identity and expression. What this means, it simply allows a person to use the bathroom that matches the gender they identify and live with by every day. This is where you applaud.
Votes. I voted yes. In 2018, Cleveland achieves and has continued to achieve a 100 perfect score on the Human Rights Campaign Municipal Equality Index.
On September 1st, 2022, getting closer here, City of Cleveland's healthcare coverage is extended to include gender dysphoria and gender-affirming surgery.
On October 13th, 2022, the Cleveland City Council passed a ban on conversion therapy for LGBTQ plus youth and imposed criminal penalties for mental health professionals who provide it.
On June 29, 2023, Mayor Bibb and our LGBTQ plus community partners cut the ribbon to unveil City Hall's first gender-inclusive restroom on the first floor.
And in that light, Cleveland Hopkins Airport in summer of 2024 also launched gender-inclusive restrooms.
Yeah. It's a little bit hard to find, the one in the airport, but it is there, just so you know. So, our next speakers. We have two amazing speakers here. We have Ohio State Senator Nikki Antonio, and we also have, please welcome, our lead advocacy coordinator, Elizabeth Kutovich. Did I pronounce that right? No! Please come up.
Everybody. Hello. So my name is Elizabeth Kutovich. I am the lead advocacy coordinator with the LGBT Community Center of Greater Cleveland. I lead the center's advocacy efforts and strategy, and I'm responsible for organizing our community into action. At this point, I want to acknowledge the larger political climate that we're navigating, one that poses significant challenges, but also highlights the urgency of our collective action. From the federal level, we're witnessing a coordinated effort to erase diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to silence LGBTQ plus voices. Although these times seem unprecedented, this is part of a larger, tried and true strategy. These policies are designed to cultivate fear. They're meant to divide us, overwhelm us, and make it harder for us to live safely, authentically, and with dignity. Through a series of executive orders, the current administration has attacked the rights and protections of LGBTQ plus individuals by gutting DEI initiatives, restricting access to gender-affirming care, and rolling back crucial protections for trans individuals. While federal actions have set the stage for a larger cultural and political shift, arguably the greater impact is felt locally. Ohio's legislature, like many other states, has been on this path for a while. House Bill 68, passed this time last year, bans gender-affirming care access for trans youth and restricts trans athletes from participating in sports matching their gender identity. These measures undermine both their right to essential health care and sends a message that trans youth do not belong, isolating and invalidating an already marginalized community. Another bill of note is Senate Bill 104, which became effective 2 days ago. Senate Bill 104 targets a basic privilege within K-12 schools, denying trans students access to facilities that match their gender identity, cultivating a school environment rooted in harassment and exclusion rather than safety and belonging. And then we have the infamous House Bill 8, which censors LGBTQ plus topics and mandates the forced outings of students to their parents by school staff. HB 8 also includes a provision on release time for religious instruction, echoing a larger effort to assert greater religious influence in public education. HB 8 will be going into effect this April. And now, as we enter a new legislative session, we have Senate Bill 1, which seeks to ban the teaching of controversial subjects and restrict diversity programs, stifling open discussions on gender and sexual orientation in higher education. But Ohio's legislative session is only just beginning. The passage of state-sanctioned discrimination and inequality may only be accelerated and legitimized by the new administration. But while these challenges are real, they are not insurmountable. We know that resistance is built through community, advocacy, and the tireless work of those fighting for progress. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Senator Nikki Antonio, a longstanding champion for our community, to share more about the fight for equality in Ohio. Give it up.
Well, here we are again. Right? Here we are again. Here we are again. And look around. Look to your left. Look to your right. See the people around you. These are the people we've been waiting for. These are the somebodies. When we say somebody ought to do something about this, right? Yes? You are the somebody. We are the somebody. So, a couple of clarifications. Many of those pieces of legislation passed last General Assembly, and some of them have gone into effect. There's a few that are going into effect soon. But something I want to tell you, as you looked at everybody around this room, is for more than 13 years, everyone in this room and across the state of Ohio fought and pushed back and held the line against any anti-LGBTQ legislation. That's something to applaud. Thing to be proud of and to remember as we deal with what's happening right now. We were one of the states where people scratched their head and said, how is it that Ohio has stood strong? And it's because of all of you and all the people who aren't here, all the people that came before us, but we're in the trenches fighting. And so the good news is, and along the way, as the young people have come along, one of the things we know is with every generation, you have an opportunity to stand up, to think about, who am I? What am I going to stand up for? What am I willing to fight for? And isn't the universe amazing? Because they give us an opportunity. I have to thank the universe all the time when they put very challenging people in front of me. And I could say, really, I'd love to just like strangle you right now. But what I say instead is, thank you, universe, so much for putting this person in front of me. I'm gonna learn something, and a whole lot of times, sometimes I learn something from them, but a lot of times I learn something about myself, how strong I am, how committed I am, how determined I am. And that's what we have to do with everything that's happening in the state of Ohio and in our country right now. Now there's two bills, Senate Bill 71, Senate Bill 70. We've introduced again the Fairness Act in the Senate. Okay. So the Fairness Act is very simple. The language is very simple. It's based on the Bostock decision of the Supreme Court that said no one should experience discrimination based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. That's it. We always have to remember is that LGBTQ rights are civil rights. All right, the other bill that we've introduced is Senate Bill 71 to prohibit conversion therapy across the state. Companion legislation that's been introduced for the Fairness Act, brand new State Legislator Tristan Radin and Crystal Lett. So 2 freshman legislators have introduced it in the House. I have been asked numerous times, why in the world would we introduce this bill at a time when clearly people don't like us? It's not about liking us, it's about rights, and it's about civil rights, and it's about equality is not a bad word, y'all. Equity, not a bad word. Diversity, it's who we are, for God's sake. So we have bills introduced, we will continue to push back, but I have to say, the most important thing that each one of us can do is, first of all, sometimes turn it off. Turn off the news, turn off the hate, listen to some music, hug your friends, hug your children, hug somebody else's children, you know. Put yourself in places that really remind you of your humanity, because it takes a lot of humanity. We talk about fighting, they're very aggressive, we use all this war terminology, but it's the fight for our soul. We are at the point of the spear. We always are. Marginalized people, they always come first for us. But then they come for all the rest of the people, right? But the good news is, because we've been here so many times, and I know you're going to hear from some speakers that are going to talk about the long fight. My brother, Gil Kudrin, the long fight with HIV, and the long fight we've had to have our rights. But this moment puts all of us here together. And it's being together, working together, not fighting with each other, knowing real clearly who it is that we're fighting against. And I want to say one thing that I'd love to hear my family. When you talk about the state legislature passing these hateful bills, it is the radical Republicans passing these bills. It is not the whole legislature, because there's a whole bunch of us on the other side that vote no and push back. This is not the time to be politically correct. It's radical Republicans who are doing this. I didn't ask them to take on the title. That's their title. That's who they are. And I think, you know, I worked for many years in the domestic violence frame, and you gotta name the perpetrator. You cannot let them be invisible. It's very, very important. So we need to know who we're fighting, we need to know who the perpetrator is, and we also need to know, guess what? We always win. Thank you.
All right, now that we put everything into context, I'm going to hand it over to the LGBT Center's Managing Director, Gulnar Farasta.
Good evening, everyone. I'm deeply grateful to share this space with you tonight. My name's Gulnar Farasta. I'm the Managing Director of the LGBT Community Center of Greater Cleveland. And I have the honor of opening this urgent conversation about the state of our LGBTQ+ community here in Greater Cleveland. Let me be clear, this is not just another panel. This is a call to action. We are here because our community, our lives are under attack. We are here because we refuse to be erased. We are here because our liberation is non-negotiable. The LGBT community has always been a force of resilience, but resilience alone cannot be the expectation. We deserve more than just survival. We deserve to thrive. Yet the data tells us a brutal truth. Systemic inequities continue to impact our health, our safety, and our access to basic human rights. And let's be real, These are not abstract statistics. These are the lived experiences and realities of our people, of our neighbors, of many of us present right here in this room. Findings from the 2024 Greater Cleveland LGBTQ+ Community Needs Assessment confirm what many of us already know. The disparities are real and they are deep. Let's take a moment to highlight some of the most pressing concerns. Housing insecurity. There are many factors that contribute to housing instability in our community, but the most heartbreaking truth is that 1/3, 33%, cited a lack of affirming family or friends as the main factor. Food insecurity. These statistics highlight a stark reality that access to basic needs is a constant battle for too many in our community. Mental health. The mental health crisis in our community is staggering. Our community carries an immense weight, and mental health services remain underfunded and inaccessible. And BIPOC LGBTQ+ people bear an even greater burden due to systemic racism and economic inequity. Healthcare discrimination. 1 in 3 LGBTQ+ people believe their identity affects the way they are treated by medical providers. That number jumps to nearly 1 in 2 for trans and non-binary individuals. Alarmingly, 73% of us haven't received LGBTQ+ specific health services in the past 5 years, and only 33% of us feel comfortable sharing sensitive identity data with our providers. Everyone deserves access to affirming, competent, and respectful health care, and yet our community continues to face significant barriers to care. Education. When every single LGBTQ+ youth reports bullying, we cannot pretend that schools are safe spaces. This statistic is a sobering reflection of the hostile environments that our LGBTQ+ youth face in educational settings. We need systemic change now. Employment discrimination. For too many in our community, we are forced to choose between job security or being out at work. This is unacceptable. And as we can see from these data points, the discrimination is tangible. In addition to workplace discrimination, there is also the day-to-day discrimination and harassment our community encounters. These numbers highlight the reality that many LGBTQ+ people do not feel safe in public spaces, public transit, workplaces, or even their own homes. These numbers paint a stark picture, but they are not just numbers. They represent real lives, people who should never have to justify their existence, who should not have to fight for dignity in healthcare, employment, education, or for simply walking down the street. So as we turn to our panelists, I want us to hold this truth. These challenges are not inevitable. They are a result of systemic barriers that can and must be dismantled. This conversation is not just about identifying the problems, it's about solutions. So I invite you to listen deeply, engage with intention, and ask the tough questions. Because this work doesn't end when the panel is over. This is just the beginning. For those who want to explore the full Greater Cleveland LGBTQ+ community needs assessment, I encourage you to scan the QR code provided or visit the center's website at lgbtcleveland.org. And with that, I would like to invite our moderator and panelists.
I'm Janine Randall Nickerson. I will be your moderator this evening. I would like to spend a moment just to introduce our wonderful panel members, and then we'll do a deep dive into some questions that highlight the different key points that Gulnar just explained that are key issues for members of our community. So to my immediate left and your right is Mary Beth Bartholomew. She is our Rainbow Pioneers East Coordinator for the LGBT Center. Mary Beth has worked with older LGBT adults at the center for almost 10 years. She is a former educator, school administrator, and nonprofit director. She and her partner of 32 years moved from San Francisco, we don't know why, to Cleveland. And they said they'd give Cleveland, the Cleveland area 5 years. They have since raised their 2 sons in Shaker Heights and now reside in Cleveland Heights. So welcome, Mary Beth. Next, we have Chris Goins. Chris is the founder and board president of Black Trans Men's Ohio. Chris is a dedicated advocate for Black trans masculine empowerment and community building. As the founder and board president of Black Trans Men of Ohio, he is committed to creating spaces where Black trans men and non-binary AFAB individuals can connect, access to resources, and thrive. With a background in computer information systems from DeVry University and culinary arts from the Columbus Culinary Institute, Chris blends strategic leadership with technical expertise to drive meaningful change. He has been instrumental in organizing initiatives such as the Wellness and Resilience Retreat, a Black Trans Men Healing Retreat, the LGBTQ+ job fairs, and legal clinics in collaboration with organizations such as Mosaic, Trans Ohio, and Stonewall Columbus. So welcome, Chris. We also welcome Anna Antoniou. Anna is a proud mother of a bright and beautiful non-binary young adult. She is an active member of the Ohio Democratic Women's Caucus, the Cuyahoga Democratic Women's Caucus, and Mobilize the Vote NEO. These organizations aim to educate and register voters, and also to elect women to office and representatives who support the LGBTQ+ community. Anna's work has included a high school librarian, at an international school in Athens, Greece, which I'd like to get to someday, and English as a foreign language teacher, and various positions in publishing. She was a volunteer at Seeds of Literacy as a GED tutor as well, so welcome, Anna. And last but not least, we have Sahara Rivera. Uh-oh. She is a Virginia native, but has been a certified community health worker in Cleveland for 2 years. She specializes in HIV prevention and transgender health navigation. Sahara advocates for marginalized communities, particularly Black, Latino, and trans people, ensuring access to safer sex information and resources. She emphasizes the importance of community support, continuous education, and collaboration to help individuals take charge of their health. Sahara believes in the potential for change and provides guidance to anyone seeking care, fostering connections within the community, from the community. So welcome, Sahara. So thank you, panel members, for giving us your time, your intellect, and your wisdom, and sharing your experiences. To allow the audience members to get to know a little bit about you, I'd like to ask a few questions regarding your personal journeys or perspectives that you've gathered as an ally or as a member of the community or in the work that you do. So let me start with you, Mary Beth, and we'll go down the line on this one. So can each of you share a little bit about your journey? What has shaped your experiences as a member of the community and or an ally?
Well, I'm a member of the community. I'm from the 1900s, so I have a long journey to talk about. Almost 3/4 of a century, which is hard to believe, but I spent almost half my life dealing with a lot of internalized homophobia. I didn't know that phrase at the time. There was no vocabulary when I was growing up. I don't think we had a TV in my home until I was in early elementary school, perhaps. And there are three stations. There was no internet. I did not feel comfortable going to the library to do an interview. Well, I didn't even know, what to research. I had no vocabulary or foundation around how to deal with the fact that I did feel very different from my peers. And this lasted a pretty long time. I was closeted through my college years, came out eventually after I had a couple teaching jobs, and I want to talk a little bit more about this later. Teaching jobs are really hard to come by in the 70s, and I quit 2 teaching jobs. I resigned because I was afraid. I knew that I couldn't be out in my position. So I think this has happened a lot with older LGBT adults. We bounce around from job to job, so we lose our retirement savings, we lose other benefits that are afforded to folks who have long-term employment. I don't know how much time you want me to spend on this, but eventually I did find my community at Penn State, where I was teaching school for a while, and there was an infamous famous farmhouse that supposedly was full of lesbians. Like, whoa. And the first time I went to visit folks there, it was exhilarating, and I think I can still conjure up I was scared to death to go there. But it was kind of the beginning of my coming out and finding my community and partners and lovers, and it was messy, but it was really fun. Yeah, but I was my own worst enemy throughout most of this period because my family was and has always been extremely supportive of me, including extended family members and friends who I was always afraid I would lose if I came out. And that's kind of a double-edged sword, because you lose friends if you stop communicating with them because you're afraid they may not accept you, but then you lose them anyway. So you have to make this decision to come out and take that risk. It shouldn't have to be a matter of luck, that I was accepted, but that is still the case, I suppose. I just got very, very lucky in that department, and it really helped my mental health. But it took me a long time to accept who I was. I wanted to play basketball in high school, but I didn't want to be associated with people who looked like lesbians, really. So I learned how to do things that felt more socially acceptable to me, and that was to drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes. Wow, what a dumb decision. I mean, really, it's not real healthy, but that self-medication lasted for a long time with me. It was the 70s, so it was kind of crazy in that way, but I didn't know it at the time, but with some 20/20 hindsight, I know that I was self-medicating, but survived.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So one of the impactful things that you brought to the attention of the audience is the internal homophobia. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about the discussion of fighting others on the outside, right, but there's also oftentimes the fight from within. So congratulations on rising above that in your journey and putting out your visibility for yourself, but the rest of us.
Thank you.
How about you, Chris? What would you like to share about your journey?
So I'm sitting here trying to think, I was born in the 1900s too, but it might be a little different. I've trying to think of LGBTQ plus. I feel like I've been in the community since far back as when I was in summer camp I think it was a Christian camp, and I lost my pool time because one of the girls called me a lesbian and I couldn't swim. That's all I remember, right? Because I kept looking at her chest, right? So as far as I can remember, I've been part of the community, but when it comes to being trans, I didn't hear about trans until 2012, and then I told the person who asked me if I was, no, I don't know what you're talking about because I'd never heard of trans. I didn't know what the T was in LGBTQ until 2012, which is very interesting. And it wasn't until 2017, well, I should say 2018, 2017, my brother was killed and taken away from me, and I got the opportunity to see how short life was, because he was only 26. And I was like, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be myself. And so, thank you. So, I'm here. So in 2018, I made a decision. I started going to support groups just to learn more and educate myself. I was, to be honest, I did look in, I remember being in high school, at the end of my high school year, and looking up like, can a woman become a man? And what Google gave me, it wasn't great, so I was like, maybe in my next lifetime, I'll be the man that I'm supposed to be, right? And I guess now I'm living with that lifetime, because now I see, like, it's funny, I just had this conversation with my dad, who, believe it or not, is a Republican and supports me more than my mother, who's a Democrat, which is my fun story. I like to tell you. But I had a conversation with my dad over the holidays, and I was like, one good thing about this journey that I enjoy is the fact that now when I look in the mirror, I see the man that I always saw, right? And from that, he had nothing else to say. I was like, yes, jaw drop. But other than that, I would say that's what shaped my journey into where I'm at now, because even though I made the decision to be myself, I didn't see anybody that looked like me. I did not know not a one single trans man. Like when you hear transgender, you don't, you see women, like trans women more so than men. Or you just see white trans men, right? So that's why I feel like I was, somehow the universe put me into this position because of how important I feel like visibility is for Black trans men. Because in a way, before the Ohio Republicans decided to try to erase us, we were already kind of erased already in the community, in which I feel like I'm trying to fight against. So, yeah, I'm here. Good morning.
So before we go to Anna, if I could ask you another question, Chris, because yes, advocacy has many forms, including just your own visibility, right, and being authentically you. But you also chose to take an additional step and allow others to be able to show up in that form. And you uplift other people's voices. So can you talk a little bit about what drew you to then become a founder of your organization and uplift others and allow them to show up?
How I started my organization is because I would say this. Like I just said, I was attending a support group, right? But at that support group, I wasn't getting what I needed in that support group. So me and one other guy, I was like, hey, what if we start our own support group for Black trans men? Because you and I cannot be the only Black trans men in Ohio.
Right.
Right? And this was at the beginning, this was in 2020, March of 2020. I don't know if many of y'all know what was happening in March of 2020. Which I feel like was a blessing for us, because that we had the opportunity to have our support group virtually, right? So we had the opportunity to meet and like, I think we had like over 100 Black trans men throughout the nation join our support group within the first 2 years that we did it. But within the first 6 months of having it, I learned how much that Black trans men are trying to survive. Not knowing what resources are out there, what they can do to help them go from where they're at to something better. And some of them didn't even have a voice to fight for themselves when they're being misgendered at work, right? But to be able to come onto that call, and I'll tell them, like, go tell them, right? I was like, if I can create something to be that voice, to actually help them find the resources that they need. Because there was one time a guy came on and he needed help because he was about to have his top surgery. He had no family. He had absolutely nobody there to help him. So I was like, I want to be able to help, right? Because my love language is acts of service, so here I am. And so within, I was like, if I could create a resource to help, and that's why now we have our aftercare kits, our after top surgery kits that we offer for people for free. They're like $300 worth of medical stuff that we give, to where even if I can't get a person there to help that person, I can at least help give them resources to help them recover better, right? But even that individual, I was able to network as well and be able to help somebody be there for him in his first couple of days after his surgery until he had, recovered, right? So like if I could do this for one person, I feel like I could do this for others, right? And so here we are, Black Trans Men of Ohio.
All right. Now, Anna, can you share with us your journey and maybe shed some light as a parent of a non-binary child, some of the challenges that maybe you faced and anything that you discovered along that journey?
Sure. Well, first of all, my only claim to fame is the fact that I have a bright and beautiful non-binary child. So that child has given me so many opportunities to just blow open my entire world and give me a whole new dimension to it. And although I wish I could circle back and be back in the school library, I do feel that a lot has made more sense to me now than did then. I don't think I was necessarily a poor advocate at that point. I was just maybe not the best one. But I am really looking forward to digging deeper, which is something that I need to do as a parent, and understanding my role in understanding what I can do and using my resources or resourcefulness to support my child, but also to support members of the community who are our public servants, who are our leaders, and to either get the right people elected or help those who are already in position to be reelected. As far as challenges, well, first of all, sometimes I have to step back and realize that this is my child's journey, not mine. So the child lets me in sometimes really slowly with drips of information, and then sometimes all at once. And so I've had to do some reading. I am willing to put together a reading list or help others put together a reading list in the schools. I mean, I've learned a lot from, like, this book is gay, or what's the tea? You know, those books are good introductions to someone like me. They don't overwhelm with their information, and they are hugely positive, which is something as a parent you really need. I mean, my child sort of pushed them onto my bedside table and kitchen table and
That's awesome.
I'd like to say that, you know, gender is never the problem. Gender is not a problem. And so you need to concentrate as a parent on advocating for your child as an individual and all facets of that child. I find that it helps to engage at the onset and engage often with the school. And I know that we talked about the bad guys and gals in our state legislature. Your school teachers and administrators are not legislators. Their expertise is in supporting every child and helping them thrive. And they really do believe that, no matter where they happen to be on their journey or what gender they are trained professionals. And I have found that it really helps to introduce my child, and I think that's very important, and it's important to do until the child is able to introduce themselves. and to be very specific about the asks. So, I mean, you can't go in, even though you want to, and just say, I want you to just love this child, every bit of them, 24 hours a day. It's unrealistic, but you can have really specific asks that are reasonable and doable. And no matter what the legislation says, and no matter what's coming out of Columbus, to state that your child has a preferred name, to state that your child has a preferred gender, or pronoun, sorry, to state that your child may feel a little self-conscious about using the restroom and they may appreciate using the nurse's restroom, let's say, or a private facility, those are reasonable asks as far as I'm concerned. And follow through with them when they follow through with you, and thank them. I know that it should be very straightforward and it should be a given, but for the people who do follow through for you, it's nice to circle back.
Thank you for sharing.
I want to say thank you. Because the fact that you said that your child might have pushed the books onto you, the fact that you opened the books and read them,
amen,
that's amazing. Thank you.
So Sahara, we know that you also are not a Cleveland native, so we'd love if you would allow us to indulge for you to share what brought you here to Cleveland and also to focus your work here in Cleveland.
Okay. Hey y'all, that's how I like to start those off. So with my personal experience, somehow my dad talked me into moving here. Literally, I was up here visiting in May of 2017, and he's like, oh, you should just move up here. You're doing the same stuff at home, just do it here. And I'm like, all right, I'll think about it. I ended up moving July of 2017. So I moved a couple years after. So when it comes to my personal experience, two things has really shaped that experience, which has led me here now. And that's having access and having a support system. When it comes to access, I started medically transitioning in 2012, but I started off by asking one of the girls I knew, like, hey, how can we do this thing? Like, how can I start taking hormones and doing this? And we were ordering them offline. So I started that way, and I'm a scaredy cat, so I always think something bad is gonna happen. So, and I didn't think that I had access to do things another way until I did some digging, did some research, and I'm like, oh, I can actually go to a doctor for this thing. So fast forward, from Lynchburg, Virginia. So to see a provider who wrote letters, I had to drive maybe like an hour and a half. And then to see a provider to prescribe hormones, I had to drive like 2.5 hours from where I was living. So access to transportation to do those things shaped the experience. And what allowed me to have access was to have a support system of my family. So that played a big part in who I am now and how I'm able to just walk the world so confidently, because my family accepted me from day one. When I told them, I'm like, hey, I'm transitioning, this is who I am. And I still allowed them grace too. So I allowed them grace to adjust to my new life. And I didn't realize it at the time. Like, I really just had a full circle moment just now, because the access that I was able to have, I passed along to my homegirls. So I was like, hey, I went and saw this person here, and I went to this place to get hormones. And then that person told the other girl that we knew. So they eventually got into healthcare to transition versus us ordering them offline and not knowing like what we were doing. So back to the support thing. So I had a very good support system of family and friends. Also, my workplace at the time was very supportive. Before I even legally changed anything, they were like, what is your name now? We're gonna create you a new name tag. We'll put you in the system new. And this was 2012, so that really is what shaped my experience. And also, the main person in that was my nanny, my short little Puerto Rican grandma. She was a proud Christian woman, but to have someone on my team pray for me and not pray to change me really gave me the strength that I needed to go out into the world and just be Sahara, really.
That's beautiful. Amazing. So if I could, yes, amazing. So similar to Chris, bringing your experience and enlightening and helping others is a beautiful thing. One question I want to ask you particularly is that you work for a local hospital here, which thankfully does provide pride care and culturally competent care. But we know in Cleveland we have 3 of the top hospitals in the nation right here in our back door, and yet access to culturally competent health care remains a major issue for many of our brothers and sisters and non-binary individuals. What systemic barriers still exist, and how do you believe that we can break them down?
When we talk about the systemic barriers, a lot of it falls into housing, transportation, education, not just like in schools, but also marketing materials. And even just being able to go into an organization and seeing people that look like you working there. I was just telling someone the other day that a lot of the organizations we go into, the marketing has our faces on it. The staff doesn't. So when you go to smaller organizations, you walk in, we're on the marketing, we see ourselves in the staff from front to end. So the barriers are there because we have to address how we are presenting the clinics, how we are presenting the resources to the people that we want to prioritize, not target. And I think one of the major ways to knock down those barriers is to not look at the work we do as 9 to 5. Yes, we punch in and punch out, but let's say someone needs you on a weekend, you don't work weekends, are you gonna tell them to wait? If someone needs you after hours, are you gonna tell them to wait? I know I'm big on like separating my work and my personal life, but if someone needs me, I'm gonna see what I can do at that time. And if I can't do anything in that moment, I'll let them know, I see you, I hear you, I'm gonna get you what you need, but I can't do it right now. So I don't look at the work as 9 to 5. And I think that mindset change in a lot of the people who work in organizations and the hospitals would really open doors and create more ways that we can get those barriers knocked down. Because if you don't have housing and you're reaching out after hours, why would I tell you to wait? Or if I have access to resources that I can get you now, as my good sis Chastity says, she'll pull up on you. You know what I mean? So a lot of it is just not looking at it as a 9 to 5, not looking at the work as a 9 to 5, and not looking at people we're helping as numbers. I'm not gonna look at you as a number and say, oh, I gotta keep you here at my organization when I know an organization down the street can get you what you need right now. You're a person, you need help, we're gonna help you.
That's wonderful. Sahara, we're very lucky to have you in Cleveland. So Mary Beth, can you tell us a little bit more about your work and what unique challenges do you see aging members of the LGBTQ community facing?
Of course, the LGBT Center has served seniors probably since its beginning, 50 years ago. But recently, in 2014, became an affiliate of SAGE USA, which is a national organization, now I guess an international organization, dedicated to improving the lives of older LGBT individuals. And I've been at the center since about 2014. and I've had the really privilege and honor to get to know these seniors who have had amazing lives. We're seeing a little bit of a generational shift right now. I've been there long enough, I guess, to see a generational shift. We're losing the pioneers. You know, the true pioneers are passing away. So it's more important than ever. I've always been very interested in oral history and intergenerational programming. I think it's more important now than ever, given the threats that our schools are facing, to get to know older adults and try to become engaged in intergenerational activities. We've lost a lot of folks who've been involved with SAGE since the center became an affiliate. I know we talk about visibility, and visibility has certainly improved from 0 to 100 in my lifetime. But I think that our seniors, we learn to fit in and look like everyone else for fear of discrimination, bodily harm, oppression. So it's really hard to, when I work with assisted living facilities, organizations like that who serve older adults, I always try to get across the point that if they're serving older adults, they're probably serving some queer older adults, but you would never know it because they've had to hide and look like everyone else. Health disparities, you talked about health disparities, are huge in the older LGBT community because of distrust of institutions and just delaying care, and for fear of coming out to healthcare providers. I've worked with a number of older adults, one who had never had a pelvic exam, a woman who had never had a pelvic exam. She was in her early 70s. And a couple other guys told me that their healthcare providers told them they would be much healthier if they could just go out in the world and find a wife. Wouldn't we all be healthier? But in this case, we need a lot of them. They didn't say anything. They just sat there, and so they weren't getting their needs met. They were both HIV positive and have been living with that for their entire lives, or most of their adult lives. So they weren't getting their health needs met, the unique health needs of people who have HIV. They have a lot to teach us. I think there's a lot of fear in the community right now. There's always been a lot of fear, but I think we're all feeling the chilling effects of the last 6 weeks. And it's good to talk to older people because they've been through a lot. They lived through the witch hunts of the 50s during McCarthyism, the AIDS crises, where we came together and started organizing pride events and marches in DC. I remember going to my first march in 1984 when Ronald Reagan wasn't using the word AIDS, and it was thrilling to see people coming together. And their isolation is huge as well. Older LGBT adults, I think, are twice as likely to not have children, although many did marry in their younger years and had children, but most do not, so they don't have sort of built-in caregivers as they age, although there are no guarantees that our children are going to take care of us. But these folks are truly alone, and we know that social isolation leads to cardiovascular disease, and it's a problem in our society at large, but I think especially within the older LGBT community.
Thank you. Chris, I wanted to get to you and talk a little bit because we know there are ever-increasing attacks on trans rights. What policy changes or advocacy efforts do you believe should be prioritized to protect Black trans individuals and the trans community at large?
I will say, like this one, it was hard to say, right? Because all of them, we need to just like throw them all out the window. But the most important ones right now, I feel like that's affecting us really is the threat to healthcare access, right? So, and then discrimination. So that's why I forgot all about the bill Senator Nikki was just talking about. I remember talking to her not too long ago about that before, and I was like, I feel like that's our biggest thing. I feel like if that bill can pass to where, you know, the discrimination, anti-discrimination, because we all know Ohio is an at-will state, right? They can fire you for any reason. I got fired because I didn't look approachable. What does that mean? We don't know. But it's all let go. So like stuff like that, to be able to fight that, and there was no, I feel like that's important. I feel like that is going to be, if I'm answering the right question, because I think I forgot the question. ADHD is wonderful.
You're doing great.
But yeah, so for me, I feel like if we could really fight for the bill to like stop all these discrimination things out here, not just in Ohio, but like nationally, to where people can be penalized for firing us, right? I think there's gonna be less chances of it, to be honest, because one thing, and I say that because what the thought that I have behind that is, I used to sell life insurance, and I was like, I bet if we actually could get life insurance if we had life insurance on every person the cop has killed, the life insurance companies would eventually go after the cops. And I feel like we could do that same thing when it comes to discrimination to the LGBT community and the trans community.
Thank you. So we're winding down a little bit, but we had some really impactful and powerful discussion. I also want to talk about powerful action, so I'll toss this up to any of you all. What are some of the ways, either in your clients or anyone in terms of personal experience that you could share, that you've seen individuals or communities push back against the things that we're facing now, right? Anti-gay legislation, the push to seclude us or to isolate us. What examples can you provide to us and the members of the audience that we can look to as inspiration, such that we can also put ourselves in that same position to push back and to fight back and to really, really, really impress visibility and safety within our community? I'm tossing it. Oh, I can call one of you out.
I'll say one thing is that we are resilient people. Indeed. And while we can be fearful of legislation, we're not going to stop living our lives. We're still going. We are still throwing our events. We are still going outside. We're not hiding. So that's one thing for me, is that we just aren't stopping. We're not going to go into the shadows. We're not going to cower. Now, for people who aren't as comfortable, we pick up the slack, because we understand not everyone has the ability to stand up for themselves or other people as much as they want to. So their support comes in other forms, whereas those who want to get in front of it are getting in front of it and standing up and standing tall and saying, well, we're just here. We've been here. We're not going to go anywhere just because you want us erased.
Amen. Yes.
Could I just add that although a lot of the legislation and a lot of the legislation which is on its way or has been passed has negatively impacted the community, we also have to look at how much pushback there has been, and I just want to cite one example. In the last couple of weeks, we had the most, I think ever, in the history of the State House, written and spoken testimony to oppose a vile piece of legislation SB1, which you have talked about, well over 1,000 people. And many of those people were allies, and many of those people realized that in picking on or further marginalizing subsets of the community or a small number of people, you're also jeopardizing huge amounts of talent which might leave the state. And you know, these are our future cancer researchers, these are our future diplomats, these are our future any of the above and so much more. And I think that that's what our work is as allies, is that we have to tap into a really deep root within us and find our strength and use pragmatic arguments to win over the people who aren't already on our side. We know who is on our side, but we have to be creative in our approaches for the others. We have to be nimble, we have to be creative, and we have to use whatever we have. Good sense of humor, whatever we have.
Anna, did you know that that was the perfect segue to the next part of this? Well, I want to finish up and say thank you again for being here, for being vulnerable, for sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom and just insight that has been, for me, it's a lot of what everyone has contributed has resonated with me. I'm sure it has also to the audience members. But on that note from Anna, we're going to turn it over to calls to action. I would ask the panel members if you can stay up here because there will be a follow-up session in terms of Q&A from the audience. So on to the next. Oh, I'm looking for, sorry. So I do want to introduce, I'm sorry, Gil Kudrin to start us off.
This is about to take a shift. How many people in here have lost one person to AIDS? Okay. How many people have lost 2 people to AIDS, at least? How many 5? How many 50? How many 100? So while I applaud everybody for being here and doing what they're doing, you have to understand that this is a call to action. These people do not want to erase us, they want us dead. I have been fighting for access to medication for my HIV infection since AZT came out. I have lost well over 100 friends to HIV and AIDS. The Ryan-White Care Act didn't pass until 1990. By that time, over 2,000 people in the greater Cleveland area, mostly the city of Cleveland, had died of AIDS. That number only escalated exponentially from that point. We were one of the cities that was most at risk. We had some of the highest numbers for HIV and AIDS in the country. We were on par with Miami, New York, San Francisco, Chicago. How many people knew that? And not many people knew that. Do you know that Cuyahoga County is one of the top 48 counties in the country for new HIV infections? How many people knew that? Most of you didn't know that. So I started working on this with Phyllis several days after the election. And I found something out about Phyllis that I didn't know. She worked the counter at Walgreens in San Francisco in the 90s. She saw what I saw. I ran the Wednesday night HIV support group at the living room in the 90s, I lost over 50 people from my group, just from that group. I started my journey in public health at the Free Medical Clinic in Cleveland in 1978, working the crisis intervention hotline. At that time, we had no suicide hotline. We were it. We had to learn how to listen to people. Nobody is listening to people with AIDS anymore. We got the modern meds in 1996, and truthfully, any doctor in this room will tell you that we are basically taking the same meds that we were taking in 1996. We just have different delivery systems for that meds. Now, look around and don't just see who's in the room, see who's not here. I personally have been going to the mayor's office in this city since Mike White was mayor. I can tell you for free that Mike White woke up many days looking in the Plain Dealer through the obituary section, praying to God that he would see my name in that section. I did not grant him that wish. I am not. Frank Jackson started off as a councilman, and he got stuck with the head of the public health committee in council. Nobody wanted that job. They didn't want to deal with AIDS. They didn't want to deal with us. And years later, he became a good friend and an ally, and he educated himself. He opened the doors to us. And one World AIDS Day, not too far from here, he walked in a candlelight vigil, and then he joked about how he might have made some mistakes at the beginning. And some people helped educate him, and he looked over at me. And everybody started laughing. A lot of the zones were there, people who knew what had been going on. Mary Zone, who had been our councilwoman, had a son who died of AIDS. And at one point, Mike White said that AIDS was not important. When he was talking to Sam Miller counseled him on that. And the waiter at their table was a member of ACT UP Cleveland. They didn't know that. And we passed that knowledge on to Mary, who had attended my support group that I ran. And Mary wanted an explanation for that. I see Kevin Schmaltzer here. Love you. Absolutely love you. Love seeing city council people here. Chantel Brown's people are here. She's in Washington doing what she should be doing. Is the county executive here? The county executive runs one of the 48 highest new HIV infection rate counties in the country. He is not here. He has been invited. I can tell you when it's time for re-election, he will ask you for a donation. Mayor Bibb was invited. He is not here. He will ask you for a donation. Tomorrow is the end of the Ryan White CARE Act fiscal year. It is likely we will never see another penny of funding for Ryan White. The UNAID funding that dried up for PEPFAR, ACT UP New York, Treatment Action Group, a bunch of other groups got together and they did the math. If there was a 90-day interruption of that medication funding, it is likely that in the following year there will be 109,000 deaths attributed to that interruption of treatment. What do people do when they can't get all of their meds? They'll take them every other day. They'll take them every third day, just hoping to hang on to life. And that is a recipe for developing resistance to these meds. There are thousands of people in this county, in this city, who rely on the Ryan White CARE Act for their very survival. They are not coming for your pronouns. They are coming for your life. They took down the T from the LGBT at the Stonewall. They're coming back for the LGB. They're coming for all of us, and when they do, and they will, they're going to burn the quilt. And when they do, it will create a light so bright that the world will never be able to unsee that. This is not a joke. This is a call to action. These people want us dead. If you do not act up now, you will never have another chance. It is delusional to think that we will make it to 26 to midterm elections. The Supreme Court last night took up the case for Donald Trump, who is exempt from anything, any law in this country. And they are going to block legally expanding funds. Dr. Gripshover from University Hospital and I did some math the other day and looked at the statistics. There are 573,000 Americans that depend on the Ryan White Care Act for access to their meds. They will start dying within months of having their meds cut off. We know from clinical trials at university hospitals right here in Cleveland that when you take somebody off their meds, their viral loads skyrocket within 6 to 8 weeks and their T cells drop. Many people who are newly infected in our area are diagnosed with full-blown AIDS. You take them off their meds, they will die. They don't have long. We do not have long to respond to this. The end of the Ryan White Care Act fiscal year is tomorrow. What are you going to do? I asked Phyllis if we can use a space at the center to reorganize ACT UP. I cannot run ACT UP anymore. I'm not a young man. I'm going to be 67 next month. When I was diagnosed with HIV, I had 230 T cells. I was told I had probably 18 months at most to live. I'm going to be 67 next month. For me, do something. I can be there to advise. I will be there as a spokesperson temporarily. But I can tell you the time I spent with Larry Kramer at the end of his life, what Larry told me, I almost hate going out of the house because people come up and thank me for what I've done. And I think, what the hell are you going to do to save my life? What are you doing? This is not about our pronouns. This is about our life. They want us dead. They let his militia out of prison. The mayor is not here. The county executive is not here. Where are my Harriet Tubman 20s? Understand that this is about race. Most of the people who are diagnosed with HIV in this country are young black men who have sex with men. This is about race. They hate gay people, they hate trans people, they hate lesbians, they hate bi people, but mostly they hate black people. This is about people of color. The state of the LGBT community is they are coming to kill us. Who remembers this? ACT UP! Fight AIDS! My first ACT UP demo, I accidentally stumbled into. I was a quiet person when I was younger. A lot of people find that hard to believe. But I was trained as a vocalist, as a classical vocalist. And I went to an ACT UP demo, and generally somebody with a bullhorn would say, ACT UP! Fight AIDS! Joe Caraccio called me before the next ACT UP demo and said, could you please come back? Because you don't need the bullhorn. And we need you to do that. I need you now to fight as desperately for my life as I fought for other people's lives. Because they take my meds away. I have 45 days worth of Biktarvy. When you take my meds away, I will die. And I will die probably within a year at most, too. And I have a lot to live for. I have somebody in my life who loves me very, very much. I have my job at Night Sweats and T-Cells, but I have almost none of my friends left. A couple of them are here tonight who I love desperately, but most of them are dead. We've held so many memorials in this space, in this very space, who has welcomed us for so many decades. But when they come asking for your donations, ask them where your Harriet Tubman 20s are. It's not just the other side. It's our side too.
Will be Bree Morgan.
Thank you, Gail. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bree Morgan, and I am honored to be at the State of the LGBTQ+ community to speak about an issue that we cannot afford to overlook. I'm here on behalf of House of Transcendent, or HOT, a community-led organization that was founded to serve the LGBTQI2S+ people, particularly those at risk of homelessness, because for too long, too many in our community have been left behind, and we are here to change that. LGBTI+ immigrants exist. They are here. They're part of our community, and yet when it comes to services, when it comes to survival, our systems pretend they don't exist. They flee their home countries because it was never safe to be who they are. Because to be queer, to be trans, to be visible meant death. They escape forced marriages, state-sanctioned violence, family rejection. They leave behind everything they know, only to come to a country that barely acknowledges their existence. And here's the part that we don't talk about enough. The same forces that made their home countries unlivable, the violence, the instability, the regimes that targeted them, many of those conditions were created, fueled, or worsened by US intervention. So now, in an almost cruel irony, the very country that helped drive them out is the only place they have left to run. And even here, their safety is slipping away. The systems that are supposed to help do not. If you're an LGBTI+ immigrant in Cleveland and you need housing, where do you go? If you need health care, who will treat you? If you need legal help, who is going to fight for you? Where do you even look if all resources are in English and you have limited English proficiency? Immigration services do not know how to support LGBTI+ people. LGBTQ+ services don't know how to support immigrants. And when you exist at the intersection of both, you fall through the cracks. A queer asylum seeker sits alone in an immigration courtroom, terrified because there's no attorney to argue their case. A trans woman flees death threats in her home country, only to end up on the streets in Cleveland because it's safer for her than a shelter. A non-binary person, kicked out of their home for their identity, walks into a Social Security office for help, only to be told that nothing is available in their language. This is not about inconvenience, this is about survival. And let's be real, none of us feel safe right now. As a trans woman, I certainly don't. Every day, the little protections we had are being torn away. Hate groups are more emboldened than ever. We are all scared, we are all exhausted. But in this moment, we cannot forget LGBTI+ immigrants who are here, trying to survive alongside us. Cleveland has the power to do better. I'm calling on our leaders to fund programs that explicitly serve LGBTI+ immigrants, not as an afterthought, not as a side project, but as a priority. Prioritize language access on digital platforms like websites and in printed materials. In Cleveland, Spanish is the second most common language, followed by Arabic. Prioritize language access on government portals, applications, and informational materials, whether it's applying for housing, accessing healthcare, or reporting exploitation. Services must be available in multiple languages with clear and culturally competent translations. Hire native Spanish and Arabic speakers who are LGBTQI+ to provide queer-friendly language services instead of using auto-translate tools that often result in poor quality translations and sometimes in offensive words. For example, some auto-translation platforms will translate LGBTQ to sodomite in Arabic. And please, please, recognize that survival is about more than just policy. It's about making sure that people have a place to go for information, people to call, and a system that does not abandon them. Imagine a city where a queer asylum seeker never has to face an immigration judge alone, where an LGBTI+ immigrant in crisis knows without a doubt where to go for help and that they are not forgotten. This is the Cleveland that we must build. LGBTI+ immigrants are here. They have survived and they do belong. But without action to make our services more accessible to them, they will continue to suffer in silence. I am calling on our leaders. Invest in improving access to services by hiring multilingual staff and contractors. Translate your websites to Spanish and Arabic, and build real solutions so that no one is left behind. Because a movement that does not fight for all of us is not a movement at all. Thank you.
Montford.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Tiffany Montford. I am a licensed psychologist here in Cleveland, Ohio. First of all, Gil, thank you. Even more so in a time like this. I'm finding myself saying that a lot. A time like this. Everyone in the community deserves access to mental health care that is individualized to meet their needs. When we are truly looking at meeting the needs of those seeking services, we cannot negate the impact of the identities they hold on how they view mental health or how the world's viewing of them affects them emotionally. Mental health services value the whole person, and we cannot truly meet the needs of those within the LGBTQ+ community if we do not see and treat them at all intersections of their identity. In a time like this, there have been negative connotations placed on the concept of equity. Yet when we really look at the definition, it simply means providing people with the resources that they need. That treatment is not cookie cutter, that each person gets what will assist them in achieving their own mental health goals, emotional wellness. And we must also acknowledge that data has identified what is needed for equity for those in the Cleveland LGBTQ community. It is culturally informed therapy services, which acknowledges the various marginalized identities that one may hold and seeks to provide treatment resources that include healing practices that are familiar. It is trauma-informed because of the recognition that many within the community have been vilified, have their right to exist and love challenged. So we must ensure physical and psychological safety within our spaces. Make sure your voices are heard and inform our approaches, and that we do so in a spirit of collaboration. There is stigma attached to seeking mental health services, and we must make sure that stigma around the full embracing of who you are is not one that you are facing. Therapy has always been a place where a person should feel affirmed, valued, understood, and safe. So our call to action in a time like this: identifying and ensuring that culturally informed treatment approaches are available and utilized with those within the community, and that such practices are intersectional, as many within the community hold various marginalized identities that not only impact who they are, but how and what healing looks like for them. Acknowledges the reality of what it means to exist at a time such as this, where strides made are being rolled back, and understandable anxiety about what is to come is affecting the mental health of those within the community. Access. Providers making it clear that they are affirming to minimize the hesitation and fear about seeking services within a system or practice that will cause further psychological harm. Accountability for those of us within the mental health profession to continue to hold statements such as those made by the American Psychological Association in 2024, which supported unobstructed access to health care and evidence-based clinical care for transgender, gender diverse, and non-binary children, adolescents, and adults, and for increased public accessibility to timely and accurate information founded in clinical and psychological science and not fear. We must show up, be fully visible and present for those within the community. There's this pull for self-preservation where those within the profession may want to roll back the use of words such as LGBTQ affirming, diversity, inclusive, addressing trauma related to racism, transphobia, homophobia, and how we advertise the work that we do. Yet we must recognize that those within the community that we say we are committed to serving do not have the privilege of hiding or fully embracing who they are by pulling back. The community needs to see you truly standing with them and supporting them. This is the essence of truly providing mental health care. Those within the community deserve access to great mental health care, especially in a time such as this.
Hello. Who's feeling uncomfortable? Just raise your hands. My name is Carrie Gibbons. My pronouns are she and they, and I'm the director of LGBTQ navigation for the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless. I'm here to talk about a call to action for our unhoused brothers and sisters. Has anyone ever heard of the concept of the red door, where you'll see them on churches or you'll see them on, pretty houses or what have you? Show of hands. Let me see some hands. I want group participation. This is how we make action, right? So with the red door, it's a place where you can seek refuge. It's a place where you can seek hospitality, safety, solace. We don't have red doors for our homeless folks here in Cleveland. So what my call to action is, I have a red heart on my shirt, right? Because I am a red door for those that we serve who are unhoused in our community. My call to action to you is, how can we collectively be that red door? Whether it's hosting a potluck that I saw recently on Facebook, whether it's coming over to the center for a cup of coffee with someone that you drove there that you saw sleeping outside. How can we uplift those that don't have anything if we're simply ignoring that they don't exist? The reality is homelessness deeply impacts our community, especially our youth and young adults. So let us be the red door that our folks who are experiencing something different than what we have, so that we can be beacons to make that call to action, and we can gather with Gil, we can gather with Bree, we can gather with Miss Tiffany, and then finally when Dara comes up, we can gather there. But together, we need to participate together and make our own red doors. Thank you.
Hello. So I'm Dara Adkisson. I'm genderqueer, I'm transmasc, I'm the executive director of Trans Ohio, and we are Ohio's oldest, thank you. So Ohio, Trans Ohio is in our 20th year. We've been unapologetically trans and helping the community since, well, 20 years ago. And I have a lot of thoughts going on right now, but I think there's a few additional calls to action that we can definitely hear today. So these are not precedented times. We all know that. Really appreciate how Gil started off the call to action section of this, because that is my tone, and that is where every fucking day is at. These are not precedented times, and we all need to take extremely unprecedented actions and get creative. In the face of current government attacks of our ability to update our name and gender on our documents, Trans Ohio has helped in the last 2 months 400 people get their documents in order across Ohio. Thank you. I say this as an example of what getting creative and taking action looks like, because normally our legal clinic every month helps 25 people. That is an exponential increase in what just a few tired trans people can pull together extremely quickly. And if that's what I can do, think about what you can do if you get creative with it, because we need to take action desperately. Now, I had hoped, as many of you had hoped, that we would have a lot of allied elected officials in the room tonight. Very appreciative of our gay electeds for joining us and all of the work that you always do. But there's calls to action for our municipal leaders. So hopefully we can bring these calls to them, to their doors, so they have to actually listen to them. Thank you. We need them to listen, to look ahead to the scenarios that we are seeing as a community that are going to do immense harm to the people in our area. There are so many things that are going to happen in the next week, in the next day, in the next month that we can be taking action for decisively right now, not thinking about it, not overanalyzing it, not discussing it in committee, but in a allied city and an allied region, a part of the state. Taking action right now is something that should not be difficult. We are going to see losses of funding from the federal level for programs like the Ryan White funding that Gil's talking about, but funding that affects people in housing, in healthcare, in food insecurity. There are so many programs that are deeply federally funded, and we can be funding those programs from a local municipal level. We have the funding, just pull it from other things. Like take a serious look and pressure our elected officials to actually care, to actually listen. Not the ones who are here tonight, but the ones who've chosen not to join us. We know they were invited, and I know they've been hearing from us, because I know that Trans Ohio and many other coalition partners across the state are reaching out actively, talking about how we see that federal funding is going to get cut to vitally important programs to not just trans people, but the whole LGBTQ community. To my trans community, to the queer community in the area, we need to continue being unapologetically ourselves. Our existence pisses off fascists. So continue living in a way that would make people that want you dead angry. And come together in mutual aid, in art, in harm reduction, in the joy that is our queer existence, because the fascists want to take it away. So make them see it. And make others know that you are a safe space, that spaces you are in are unapologetically trans and queer spaces to exist in. In the last half of the year, Trans Ohio has given out nearly $70,000 in mutual aid funds. Now, this is a huge community effort across the state. It comes from people fundraising through concerts and bake sales and t-shirt and art and readathons and pump-offs and cycling and social media posts and just so many varied kinds of pitching in. And I say this as an example that there is a way for everyone to get activated and take action. It may not look like being visible to everyone. It may look like whatever you like doing can offer a service that can help your community. Think about that and plug yourself in. Maybe not this evening, but maybe this evening. Definitely tomorrow. And to all the allies in this room, the allies who are going to see recordings and snippets of this, we need you to stand up and not comply. Laws are not always just. They're frequently not just. And we are increasingly seeing at both the state and the national level attacks on trans people being targeted, across all LGBTQ people being targeted. And we know that it is not going to get better in the short term. And we need people to be willing to sacrifice privileges and stand up and be vocal about it. We need there to be clerical errors. We need people to be too busy to fill a request. We need people to physically block with their bodies. We need people to know not to share personal information. We need people to speak up loudly and vocally against bigotry. A small action can have an immense impact in someone else's safety and life. And when asked, and you will be asked to the allies in the room, you do not know immigrants, you do not know trans people, you do not know queer people. You do not know anyone who is homeless. Of course you do, but you don't. And people need to understand that, and they need to get smart about it yesterday, because we are all actively being watched, quite honestly. And just be that safe wall to protect the community if you have the privilege to do so. And if you have that privilege, you know who you are. Take action now, all of you, please, now. And in every form of action that you can think of to take. And if you need ideas, reach out to any of us here. We've got lots. Thank you.
So due to time, we will skip the Q&A, my apologies, and instead we will organize a follow-up community town hall for the Q&A. So I'm going to turn it over to Phyllis Harris to close out this evening.
Hi. Sorry, I'm not Phyllis, but we'll get to her in just a second. As we close out tonight, and we're coming up, closing out Black History Month also, I feel compelled to acknowledge the stark reality facing trans people, especially Black trans people here in Cleveland. So while, my name is Bree Easterling. Sorry about that. My name is Bree Easterling. My pronouns are they, them. I work for Policy Matters Ohio. Right, so, especially Black trans people here in Cleveland, while, some of the small steps towards progress has been made and acknowledged tonight, the urgency for real transformative change still remains. Cleveland continues to be recognized as an epicenter for deadly violence against Black trans lives. And this month, we have lost 2 members of our community, one of whom was from Cleveland. So this evening, I want to take a moment of silence to honor Sam Norquist, a Black trans man whose life was tragically stolen in the Finger Lakes region of New York and discovered in Yates County, New York on February 13th. Sam was just 24 years old. We especially honor Tahiri Broom, a 29-year-old Black transgender woman, also known as lovingly as Tokyo. She was from Cleveland, Ohio, and she was born on March 1st, 1995. Tahiri deserved a life filled with love, joy, and safety, but she was shot and killed on February 9th in Southfield, Michigan, while visiting from Cleveland. So let us hold space for Tahiri and Sam, and for their families, and for all trans lives taken by violence. May their memories fuel our fight for justice and serve as a reminder of the work that still lies ahead. Thank you.
Wow, very moving, encouraging, realistic evening. I am overwhelmed, I am angry, but not at you. I'm angry because there were invites, and I did get guarantees. And instead of, I found myself sitting here thinking, what else could I have done? Should there have been a reminder phone call or message? But no, they knew about this event. And so while I'm disappointed, I'm gonna allow that angry to really compel me to do what's next around this. And so there will be an opportunity for the questions that we got to be raised and for us to talk about it. And we will be taking your calls to action and getting them on the desk in the faces of the folks who didn't show up tonight. We're going to figure that out. So, here's what the speech says. Dear esteemed guests, our allies, and my beloved members of the LGBTQ+ community. Thank you for gathering here today at the State of LGBTQ Greater Cleveland. We've come together at a pivotal moment, united by our shared vision of equality, acceptance, and empowerment. Your presence here signifies our collective commitment to cultivating an inclusive community where everyone can thrive. I heard that a lot. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. Free from unchecked bias and discrimination. I want to thank our moderator. I want to thank our panelists, Janine, Chris, Mary Beth, Anna, and Sahara for being here. Thank you to Trinity Cathedral. Thank you to my fabulous team who really pulled this together. Elizabeth wins the award for being NAG of the Century and getting it done. Thank you, Elizabeth, for all that you've done. We knew after the election on November 7th that there would be a call, that we had to lead. And we took a break, and we came back on January 2nd, and Elizabeth and the team has been working really hard ever since then, and all of our organizational partners who showed up and all of the community members who helped us to form this, thank you. I want to share with you 7 key strategies, and you know it's 7 because I'm Phyllis Seven Harris if I didn't introduce myself. Right. You've heard a lot tonight, but this is really to my family, to my siblings here. We're going to do some things. This is going to help meaningful change in our community. We're going to resist. You heard about it. We're going to do it. We must resist the forces that seek to undermine our rights and dignity. Together, we stand against discrimination and injustice, ensuring that our voices are heard loud and clear. And you heard some tonight. We can get loud and louder. We're going to activate. It's time to activate our passion and commitment to change. Let us mobilize our community, harnessing our collective energy to advocate for policies that protect and uplift every member of our LGBTQ+ family. We're going to communicate with each other. We're going to tell our stories. You heard some. We should share our stories, our struggles, and our triumphs, fostering understanding and compassion with our community and beyond. And we're going to have our joy, too. We'll have that happen. We're going to collaborate. Collaboration is key to our success. By working together with our allies, organizations, local leaders, we can create stronger, more inclusive network that amplifies our efforts and drives meaningful change. We're going to invest, right? We're going to invest in our community, both in resources and relationships. Supporting local LGBTQ organizations and initiatives is essential to building a future where we can thrive. We got to invest in us, y'all. Somebody said it already. It's not about fighting each other, right? We're going to educate. Education is a powerful tool. We know it. By educating ourselves and others about LGBTQ+ issues, we can dismantle stereotypes and foster a culture of acceptance and respect. And then finally, we're going to organize. We know how to do this, yes. We must organize our efforts. By coming together, we can create a unified front that advocates for our rights, ensuring that our voices resonate in every corner of our city and beyond. Together, let's take these actions to heart. Carrie? Yes, let's build a greater Cleveland that is truly reflective of our values, one that celebrates diversity, champions equity, demands inclusion, and affirms the beauty and legitimacy of LGBTQ+ people, our lives, our love, and our liberation. Let's go. Thank you so much, everyone. Everyone, please get home safe. I'm sorry we ran out of time, but we will follow up with questions in our call to action on the desk of Mayor Bibb, and I'm going to need your help. Okay.
Great job, Janine.